Alright guys, so in the previous video I showed you how to thread the sewing machine. So in this video I'm going to try and keep it short and just focus on the major or the main seams or stitches that you need to know as a beginner sewer and as well as a professional. Now keep in mind, I want to forewarn you that every tip and trick that I'm going to be showing you for the next couple of days, it is different for different people. Some people like to do certain things a certain way and it just comes from their own personal experience. All I'm going to be doing is showing you the basics of what works for me and what could work very well for home sewers as well, because manufacturing sewing is a tad bit different. So I'm going to try to show you the tips and tricks in both ways and how you can use it at home. Now the first thing I do want to show you is that I do have fabric here, and this is muslin fabric, and I'm going to pull about 4 of these for right now. And I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can sew your fabrics, because the idea is to sew 2 pieces together. So they are pretty much lined up edge to edge, and I'm going to show you how to do the straight stitch without pins, and in this case with pins. Now if you're going to use pins, I am a person who rarely ever sews with pins, and these are straight pins or fabric pins or whatever you want to call them. You can get them at the fabric store, and there are effective ways to pinning your garments. I will say that these are the incorrect ways to pin fabric. This is an incorrect way because your finger and the sewing machine, you can pretty much hurt yourself in that case. The same thing if you have your pin like this, because it's going up and then you're doing back stitch and you can possibly hurt yourself from here as well. And upside down. So those are the 3 ways you do not want to pin your fabric. Now with pinning fabrics, you don't want to have too many pins. Too many pins, you can run the risk of actually running over the pin with a needle and possibly breaking the needle, and we don't want that to happen. So a very small pinch of fabric at the very close to the very ends or edge of your fabric, and it should be like this. You only need a few, and ever so far apart. I like them this wide apart. So if you are a person who likes to use pins, this is the correct way to do it. Now depending on your sewing machine, you will probably have a digital one, or in this case I have a dial that controls. I can change it to the number that I needed to do for the straight stitches, and there's elastic stitches and zigzag stitches. All of these I will show you that you do need to test them, but we're just going to focus on the first 3. Number 2 and number 4 are the same. The only difference is the positioning of the needles. Most common one is the needle right in the center of the presser foot down here. So I'm going to show you how to use number 2, which is your straight stitch, and that is the most used stitch, just so you guys know. Alright guys, so to start sewing, I'm going to start with the one with no pins in it. And to start sewing, I'm going to tell you some very important tricks, so I hope you guys are paying very close attention. What I do, I'm going to show you the correct way, and then I'm going to show you the incorrect way. The correct way is first deciding what your seam allowance is going to be. There are 3 kinds of seam allowances. There's a 5/8, ½ inch, and a 1/4 inch. We call it the 5/8, the half, and the 1/4 inch seam allowances. And I tend to use the ½ inch or the 1/4 inch, which is the 1/4 inch is usually the side of your presser foot, and then just about a little bit over there will be a line indicating that that's ½ inch, and you do have somewhat of a ruler that's in inches and in centimeters, so you can decide what your seam allowance is going to be. Now I'm going to put it on the ½ inch, and then I'm going to make sure the back of my fabric is lined up to the back of my presser foot, and then I'm going to use the needle dial or the balance wheel, and I'm going to drop my needle down first, and then I'm going to drop my presser foot down. Then I'm going to back stitch. Back stitching is what secures your seam, and then I'm going to go forward and sew. Once I get to the edge of my fabric, I'm going to back stitch just a little bit, and then lift my presser foot, making sure that the needle is up, and I can either use my scissors to cut that, or usually sewing machines have like a blade on the side of it where you can cut it off. So this is what you don't want to have happen. You definitely do not want to have your fabric underneath and it's right at the edge where the needle starts. The problem with that is it may not actually sew through because you have no fabric underneath the rest of the presser foot in between the dog teeth. So the dog teeth that are underneath there is, and your presser foot does this motion. So we'll have a problem with it shifting the fabric if you do this. You'll also have a problem with it shifting the fabric if you even put it in correctly, lining it up right, and dropping the presser foot down first before the needle. Again, your dog teeth will grab the bottom fabric and kind of take it off about a centimeter or so off on the edge. And that's if you want perfection, and more than likely that is more of a manufacturing thing. So in this case, those are the things you don't want to do. You do not want to line your fabric up right at the needle, and you definitely don't want to put your presser foot down before your needle. Now the next stitch is called a basting stitch, and on this particular sewing machine it's number 3. What you will notice is that the stitch length is much longer than the stitch lengths on the regular straight stitch seam and the regular straight stitch seam with the needle towards the left of the machine. So what a basting stitch does is it allows you to put two pieces together without necessarily securing it as a seam. It gives you the ability to either gather the fabric or to take those pieces apart. You just need them together temporarily. So just for the sake of you seeing that you can sew through your fabric with pins in it without breaking your needle, as long as you don't have a lot of pins going on, it's less likely that you will break your needle or that it will run over and actually break. So again, making sure my needle is down first, everything's lined up, drop my presser foot down, and then not back stitching, but just going straight forward and all the way to the end. You can lift your presser foot. If your needle's not up, lift it up, and you will have a basting stitch. Now usually with basting stitches you need a lot of thread on both sides, and you may not recognize it, I can, but the stitch length is a little bit wider. I'll take my pins out. And you can kind of see the thread in there, and it's a little bit easier to pick it with a, God, what do you call those things? With a thread picker, whatever. I'll probably have it listed of what I'm talking about. I'm at a loss for words right now, but yeah, you can actually take this apart. So that's usually what a basting stitch is. It's just a temporary stitch that does not require any back stitching from the beginning or the end. It also helps allow you to, if you pull one of the threads, not both, it allows you to gather it at some point too. So depending on your sewing machine and your stitch length, you can start to gather your fabric. Alright, so last but not least is the zigzag stitch. And I usually use a zigzag stitch with knits and anything with elastic. I don't use it that often to finish seam allowance because I own a serger. But for those of you who do not own a serger, you could use a zigzag stitch for your seam allowance to look nice, and that's totally up to you. I think it's really nice or better used when you have fabric that actually frays and you do not have a serger. And that's usually like silks and polyesters and fabrics that are very drapey and very thin, and they just shred to pieces the more that you use them. So a zigzag stitch is a good way to kind of finish off and secure your seam allowance so that it doesn't unravel. So in this case, you can, or you can choose not to back stitch. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to drop my needle. I'm going to drop my presser foot, and then I'm going to show you which one of the zigzag stitches I'm going to be using. So as you can see on my brother's sewing machine, the XL2230, there are several different zigzag stitches, and the most common I use is the 7 or the 8. There are different ones. I do encourage you to test them all out to see what they do, and please read your manual, because your manual tells you what each of these zigzag stitches are used for. So I'm going to use preferably the number 8 for right now. Everything is still in place, and I'm just going to go ahead and go forward. And that's a zigzag stitch. Now you can go ahead, and I prefer that you do test out and see what all of the other ones look like. These are what all of the other zigzag stitches and other, you know, fun decorative stitches that are available on my brother XL2230 that I have. So I would definitely recommend that you do that so you can see what they look like. I even have them numbered based on the dial. Now if you have this brother sewing machine or any other sewing machine that has like a plethora of stitches, I would still suggest that you try them out. You never know which one of these are going to work for you for whatever project that you have. So you definitely want to try all of those stitches and see what they look like. So for this one, it would look like I would need a little bit more fabric to do so. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Thumbs up and share if you found this video very helpful. Make sure you stay tuned in for tomorrow. I think I'm going to go ahead and start uploading some fashion DIYs first before I get into talking about the serger. I have a Singer serger, so we are going to talk about the serger. Other than that, make sure you're following me on all social media. Make sure you're checking out my website, and I will see you guys in the next video.